This week on Waterways, changes in the working waterfronts, and Species Spotlight, the Brown Pelican. Change is the only constant, and the Florida Keys has seen many, many changes. Changes to the reef ecosystem, changes in the fish stocks, and changes in the way people earn a living. From shipwreck salvaging, to sponging, to turtling, even cigar making. These industries are history. But fishing, commercial fishing, and the waterfront businesses that support the marine industry have always been a part of the Keys economy. But now coastal development may threaten even this constant of life in the Keys.
This is a very complex and dynamic situation that involves not only the Florida Keys, but also all of the state of Florida, especially in the coastal areas. Marinas and working boat yards are a very valuable element of our economy throughout the state of Florida. And as we see more and more people who are interested in condominiumizing anything that's on the waterfront, we're losing our working waterfront.
Waterfront property values are doubling every few years in the Florida Keys. As more wealthy baby boomers retire, the waterfront properties that line the Keys are worth more as a condominium development than as a working waterfront. Boathouses, boat yards, marinas, fish houses, many businesses have closed their doors for good.
Most of these mom and pop marinas, even things that had nothing to do with commercial fishing, have been sold off or redeveloped. Basically, property everywhere in the United States is going up and up in value because they're not making any more land. And so down here, someone who's got a piece of waterfront property and he's barely paying his taxes and barely making a profit in his business, and someone waves some greenbacks in front of him, what would you do?
Most people take the money. However, when some folks get offers, they ask questions about future plans for the property. When Marathon Boatyard and marina owner Bruce Popham receives offers, which happens every week, he asks two questions.
One, are you going to keep it as a working waterfront? And two, are you going to take care of my people? And if we can't resolve those two issues, then the conversation stops. So, in essence, I'm turning away literally millions of dollars to continue to operate as a facility. But I enjoy what I'm doing here. We make a good living. We provide a service to the community.
Bruce is not alone in the offers he receives, but his position is getting lonelier. The offers that Bruce receives on his waterfront property reach $10 to $20 million. According to Popham, a marina on Stock Island, just up the road from Key West, had an offer of $50 million for 12 acres.
With so much money out there to be had by people, I think it's very admirable and remarkable if and when a marina owner or a fish house owner turns down these huge sums of money just to sell out and walk away from their property. But I think people are, like Bruce Popham at Marathon Boatyard, care so much more about just the money. People care about this community.
The waterfront has changed dramatically in the last 7 or 8 years. I know of about a dozen properties that have been converted now to condominiums that were where public access was before. And so what you're seeing is that change that was a working facility somewhat like what we have here, where we work on boats and work on commercial vessels and to waterfront areas that are pretty much an exclusive gated community where you don't have public access to that waterway anymore, and you lose these working facilities that are providing an essential service to the marine industry here in Monroe County.
Shoreline property owners have quickly realized that they can make more money leasing dock space to recreational boats than by dealing with the commercial fishing boats. The number of recreational boats more than doubled from 1980 through the year 2000, And commercial fishing boats take up much more room with their nets, their traps, and all their equipment. But who cares? Tourism can generate enough revenue for the Keys economy to survive. Boathouses will be replaced by timeshare condos, and shrimp boats will be replaced by charter sport fishing vessels. Is it the government's role to slow the sands of time?
This is one of the things that's occurred in waterfront communities around the country, is that generally, as working waterfronts, whether they've been commercial fishing activities there or commercial shipping, marine trades, commerce of one sort, as those things are no longer economically viable, that waterfront is boarded up, and generally the use of it is changed, and sometimes it excludes the general public from the enjoyment of that waterfront or even a waterfront view. You can't even see the water because of the high rises.
The Florida Keys are an island archipelago where access to the water is essential for the full experience and enjoyment of the area. The character and culture of the Keys is built on boating, fishing, diving, and sightseeing. Watching Keys sunsets, a daily community ritual, would be impossible if blocked by concrete structures and iron gates.
People come to the Keys, if they're here to visit, they want to go to the water. They want to see the working waterfront. They want to see people unloading fish and stone crab and lobster, and they want to see the fishermen coming in from a day out fishing. And they want to get out on the water. They want to go snorkeling, or they want to go diving, or they want to go fishing, or they want to go to dry tortugas. And all of that is disappearing because of those conversions of working waterfront. So it's a dramatic change, and it changes why people come to the Keys.
Another concern about the loss of working waterfronts, beyond culture and quality of life issues, is the need for infrastructure to maintain basic life necessities demanded by Keys living.
And you have to have facilities, in-place facilities as infrastructure that provides the working on motors, the repairing of boats. Without this, you'll have to have your boat repaired and fixed in a long-distance relationship somewhere outside of the Florida Keys. And I do not exaggerate that situation one bit.
There's really nowhere else for anybody to keep a boat anymore, so I think we're maxed out. We still have tons and tons of trailer boaters coming down here for day trips, weekend trips, weeks at a time. But we're maxed out. We don't have any more boat ramps than we had 10 years ago. We don't have really any more marinas than we used to have. We probably have a few more slips, but not a lot more slips. There's a lot of players involved in this on both sides of the issues. Certainly the people that are driving this issue are developers and property owners who have a huge carrot dangling in front of them. Marina owners and fish house owners who are struggling to make ends meet. Maybe the catches aren't as big. For marina owners, insurance rates are going through the roof for them. The desire to sell out is there constantly.
But should the government step in? How far should and could the government go to preserve Keys culture?
I think the concept of government staying out is a very valid idea, but it's really a double-edged sword. If government stays out and keeps their nose out of private property owners' business and lets everybody develop as they will, and we kind of pull the planning policies out of things, things could go in a very negative direction in a very short time.
Fortunately, the Keys commissioners have some models to look at for suggestions. Before the exodus to Stock Island, the Key West commercial fishing industry had always been centered at Key West Bight, a small harbor on the northern end of the island. At what is today called Key West Historic Seaport, the City Commission stepped in years ago when the property came up for sale.
The objective of the city at the time was to keep that parcel from being privatized with the potential for it to either be some sort of marina condominium complex that excluded the general population of Key West. There had to be a bond issue. Everything costs. So to pay that bond issue, the city looked at ways to generate revenues there, and what they figured out was, well, we'll have a number of water-based businesses. We'll also have a mix of businesses that are land-based type activities.
Today at historic Seaport, the lobster and shrimping boats have been replaced by fishing charters, yachts, and large catamarans that ferry tourists to the reef. These changes have altered the landscape, but there is still an opportunity to experience the harbor. Because the city bought the property, the retail, restaurants, and reef trips lease the waterfront space, so the public can still share in the waterfront experience. While locals sometimes pine for the days before scooters, t-shirt shops, and cruise ships, there is quite a bit more wealth and prosperity in Key West since the boom in tourism.
With the advent of tourism in Key West, there are plenty of jobs. All you have to do is open the Help Wanted section of our local newspapers, and you see page after page, Help Wanted. Go back to those same newspapers, as I have done for the 1950s and 1940s, and the Help Wanted ads would fit on a quarter of a page.
But as Rich Jones explains, jobs waiting tables and tending bar may not match up to the jobs they are replacing.
A person who works in a boatyard probably gets paid 2 or 3 times as much as he would working in a restaurant or just washing off boats if a boatyard was turned into a restaurant. These are people that are in highly trained trades, vocational areas.
The economic impact of the fish and crustacean landings in the Florida Keys in 2004 was over $100 million for just 6 species. In 1995-96, the total economic output in Monroe County attributed to tourism was $1.33 billion. Keeping a little economic diversity, even if it is only up to 10% of the economic makeup, is important.
One of the big phrases that's being thrown around the state and in Monroe County now is no net loss. And no net loss is the catchphrase all up and down the east coast of Florida, and that means different things to different people, but it certainly means no net loss of slips, but it also means no net loss of marinas, no net loss of boatyards, no net loss of fish houses and commercial fishing dockage.
There is a basic conflict between 2 coastal user groups, commercial fishermen and shoreline developers. The conflict is over space, a limited resource in the Keys and other coastal communities.
As a property owner, I understand that the people's concern about having the ability to do what they want to do with their property, because you should be able to do that. On the other side of the coin, I grew up in Florida as a kid, and I remember in the 60s that their big issue was beach access. And at the time, the state of Florida realized that the beaches belonged to everybody. They just didn't belong to the people that owned the land that the beach is fronted on. And some very far-sighted politicians saw the importance of making that beach access public. And I correlate our current situation to the same thing. If we don't take some kind of action from a governmental point of view to stop the conversion of the working waterfront and water access, then it's going to deny that access to all the visitors and all the people that live here now.
The effects of losing a single boatyard may be quite substantial. For example, there is only one marina capable of servicing large boats in the Lower Keys. It is located in Stock Island, where boatyards are vanishing and high-end apartments are appearing in their place. Without boatyards to service their vessels, many boat captains will have to look elsewhere for service. Perhaps Miami or Tampa.
The first thing that we have to do from an elected official standpoint is educate the general public of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And I think that those who have lived here for any period of time, those who have visited here for a period of time, recognize the change that's coming about because of the high property values here. There is a gentrification going on of the Florida Keys, and I don't think that the present residents and the visitors want to see it change to Any Place USA, to a place where only the wealthy can enjoy.
Increasing property values and property taxes are a force propelling the sale and redevelopment of many important waterfront properties in the Keys. According to recent figures, Key West is the most expensive place to live in Florida. The rest of the Keys are not far behind. While change is inevitable, it is not always gradual, as is evident in the working waterfronts being lost in the Florida Keys. Brown Pelican. Diet: rough fish. Height, length: well-rounded 42 to 54 inches. Wingspan: 6.5 to 7.5 feet. Color: juveniles, all brown. Adult: chestnut, white gray neck, yellow crown. Distribution: the Gulf, Virginia to the mouth of the Amazon River, and Central California to South Central Chile. Perched on the branches of mangroves. A clumsy splash as they hit the water, emerging seconds later, pouch enlarged with a meal. Watch with admiration as they beat their wings, which span an impressive 6 feet, against the water, tilting their heads to strain 3 gallons of seawater from their fresh catch. The brown pelican is unmistakable to those who have spent a weekend on most any American coastal waterway. Instinctively, the brown pelican colonizes an area of beach or brush safe from predation. They hang around marinas, hoping for an easy meal of fish heads discarded as waste from somebody's prize catch. But feeding pelicans anything, especially fish carcasses, can harm them. The brown pelican has evolved to eat much smaller fish with much smaller bones. Be sure to properly dispose of fish carcasses, and do not feed the wildlife. And be sure to dispose of fishing line and fishing hooks, which can kill pelicans when they get tangled. In a nest comprised of mangrove twigs, an average clutch of 3 eggs lie atop a centerpiece of seagrass. The baby pelicans hatch after 1 month of incubation. Surrounded by their peers in the oceanside colony, the newborn observes a hunting party of adults flying overhead in the morning sun. In tight formation, the pelicans soar 30 to 60 feet above the water, spotting prey close to the ocean surface to a depth of 9 feet. The pelicans dive at what would be a fatal speed for most any other bird and return to the nest with a stomach full of fish. The baby pelicans, temporarily silenced by the regurgitated fish chowder, will eat as much as 150 pounds from its parent's lower jaw pouch before it's able to hunt for itself. Life will progress in this way over the next 9 weeks. With any luck, half the chicks will survive to fledge. Like all species of pelican, the browns fly in formation. However, teamwork isn't the nature of the American brown pelican. The brown pelican is most hostile when hunting or feeding, occasionally turning on its own species. This is the only time you might find yourself in a standoff with a bird. Pelicans fend off threats by hissing and snapping at anything that gets between their elongated hook beak and a satisfying meal. Without vocal cords, the brown pelican relies primarily on body language to express itself. While inside the colony, dominant pelicans will extend their throat pouch and shake their head. The meaning of these gestures ranges from postures of dominance over territory, a potential mate, or even food. This isn't what you might consider a charming bird, but it certainly doesn't lack in character. Pelicans are as nimble in the air as they are clumsy on the ground, and that's a lot to live up to. As for the plunge, though probably still painful, the anatomy of the pelican is designed for impact. Air-filled bladders below the skin and hollowed cavities in the bones give the pelican substantial resistance. Coordinating the plunge and locating its prey are part of the pelican's instinctive repertoire. The pelican must learn to adjust to the refracted light, water bending the image below the surface. The mechanics of the lower jaw dip net aren't quite elementary. Mandibular bending is the term used to describe the way the pelicans can open their pouch. Like a Ziploc bag, this pouch is an effective tool. The brown pelican has been in the sights of America's ecologists for decades. In the early 80s, DDT was found as being the main cause for declining numbers of brown pelicans. The pesticide caused eggshells to be too thin for incubation, so DDT was banned from use. The brown pelican was given the status of endangered. Thanks to these protections, populations have improved everywhere. Marine birds continue to be a testament to the condition of our waterways. What plagues a keystone species like the brown will in turn affect us and every other being in the food chain. While the brown pelican may not be as revered as the eagle, while it may not be as respected as the osprey, acknowledge the evolutionary artwork that is the brown pelican awkwardly dawdling about is still nothing less than magnificent.